What's up, guys? It's Deke, Thoughts on the Bench, back with my first mock video. It's not even the Super Bowl yet. We just watched the Chiefs scrape by, because the NFL's not rigged, it was a real game, the Cincinnati Bengals, and we watched the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely decimate a quarterbackless 49ers. So a lot of things that we still have left to see. But with Two Beers Deep back this week, I wanted to start off with the first unofficial start of the Thoughts from the Bench draft calendar. With me, as always, is my right-hand man, Bean. He was not really helping out much during setup, so Bean? All right, he's asleep. So, guys, it's just a first-round mock today. My first video of the year. I'm sure that this is going to be terribly wrong. Last year, I had Chargers fans in my DMs because I said that they didn't need a linebacker, and they told me that Murray sucked. And I had Giants fans, and interesting. So, two mocks that led me to get to this. Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah dropped both of theirs. Bucky Brooks dropped one that was terrible. Just a lot of mocks going on right now, and they're all going to be so drastically different by the actual draft day. Some things to keep in mind. Thoughts on the bench drafts, we don't do trades. I don't foresee the Chicago Bears in any universe keeping the number one overall pick. They just don't need a quarterback. I mean, I could see them doing something to get a quarterback, but it's not going to be in this draft, right? So if Lamar Jackson came available, something crazy happened that they wanted to move Fields, I could foresee that being an opportunity, but they're not going into this draft thinking we need a quarterback. Their pick, I believe, is pretty solidified already. So that comes out there. I see them moving around a lot. The Colts are a team that could jump up. That would make a lot of sense. It's not something, I'm not breaking news here. This is the most common draft talk ever, but I wanted to walk through my first mock and go through some positional thoughts. I basically had a 3-hour car ride for work last night and today. So 3 hours out, 3 hours back from where my apartment is. So I listened to a lot of draft talk. So here we go. Deke's number one mock draft of the year, guys. So I'm using Pro Football Network here, PFN. We normally do the Draft Network, but their mock draft simulator is still not up and functioning right now, which is fine. I think that's the best one. It just is, but you can get free trades and everything. Just PFN mock draft is what I type in here. So the draft order, top 5, I think is really exciting because there's a lot of teams here that do need quarterbacks. There are 3 to 4, depending on your opinion of it, quarterbacks that could go in the first round here. Just to start off with a few things, I think that the edges in this class, because there are so many of them, we assume it's a good class. I don't think it's a great edge class, despite all of the names coming out of it. I think it's a very weak wide receiver class. I think it's a very deep running back class. I do think that defensive tackle is an interesting position. There's a couple guys to look at there. Obviously, one here we'll talk about in a second. And I don't know. It's a weird class. I don't think it's going to be a prolific class that answers a lot of questions about these teams' needs. And I think there's going to be a lot of chances taken in the first round, especially here. A lot of good names are probably going to go on day 2. And I don't really even know if there's 31 because of the Miami situation, 31 guys that deserve first round grades. But as is tradition, you have to select somebody with your pick. So there's going to be 31 first round draft picks. So let's start it off here. Chicago Bears. They just finished the season. Justin Fields is the new rushing quarterback. Everyone loves him. They trade basically a first. It's the 32nd pick of the first pick of the second round of the Pittsburgh Steelers for Chase Claypool. They're bringing in some talent for that team. But for me, it comes down to 2 things for them. They're either trading back from here, and you could see the Colts move up. You could see the Raiders move up. You could see the Panthers move up, all for the quarterback to get in the mix there. Or they're taking this guy right here, Jalen Carter. On a team that had Jordan Davis last year, Carter was apparently still the anchor. I mean, what this Georgia team did and Kirby Smart did is untouchable right now. Obviously, Nick Saban is still alive and breathing oxygen, so Bama's going to be good. But Georgia, man, they just got some freaks. So Jalen Carter, for me, fits right into that system for the Bears. They need a guy that's in the trenches on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that he's one of the home run hits here. A lot of character issues, a lot of thoughts coming out of there. People discussing some red flags, but you're going to find red flags. If you remember Myles Garrett's draft, his red flag is that he liked dinosaurs and wrote poetry. So you could find red flags if you want to there. I think number 1, you can Sharpie it in as long as there's no trades that come out of there. So Jalen Carter to the Bears makes all the sense in the world. Pick number 2 here is where we get interesting because the Texans are going quarterback. Fired Lovie Smith. They still have Davis Mills. We know he's not the guy there. He had a decent year 1. Not so hot last year. Some of the big names there, you're looking at Brandon Cooks probably shipping off. So they do have 2 first-round picks, as you can see on the side of your screen. They have the 2nd pick and the 12th pick. So you could see a wide receiver maybe at 12. For me, again, I'm not in love with this wide receiver class. I think there's some good names, but they found a running back last year in Damon Pierce. I think Pierce was really good, and they still have somewhat of a line. So if I'm looking at this pick, it's a quarterback, right? It's Bryce Young, it's C.J. Stroud, it's Will Levis. If we're going to look at the 3 of them, it's tough for you to look me in the eye and say Bryce Young was not the best player in college football the past 2 years. Last year, injury prone, some stuff happened in there. It wasn't the same Alabama we're used to. He was running for his life a little bit, but I did get to go see the Mississippi State game at Tuscaloosa, and Bryce Young is a good quarterback. The problem is he is, I think, about $175 and 5'11". So it's going to be tough coming up here. So you really need a good system, a strong team. Somebody like Brian Dabble, what he's done with Danny Dimes, a good coach that's going to make the scheme fit. And I don't know what the Texans are going to actually have. So for me, in this pick, I do think Bryce Young's the best quarterback, but I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud. Bigger guy at Ohio State. I think the big knock on him is that he never used his legs. He didn't use his legs to get out of certain situations until that Georgia game. C.J. Stroud looked like the best quarterback in the class during that Georgia game. Georgia's defense is unbelievable, as we just talked about Jalen Carter. I don't know if Stroud, Levis, Young, there's so much time, guys. I mean, right now it's January 30th, so much time left coming up here. I do see Stroud as a good fit with a couple different teams. Young, for me, is the best guy, just really small. Stroud, for me, is the untapped potential that he needs to get some confidence. And Will Levis is the project. But by project, his upside is absurd. 4th quarterback we'll definitely get to in the first round because I'm a quarterback-heavy guy. That is Anthony Richardson out of Florida, so I'll talk about him later on. 3rd pick here, Cardinals. Finally got rid of Cliff. I don't know what's going to happen with Kyler Murray, but there's no way they go quarterback in this draft. I just don't foresee it. I do think that they moved DeAndre Hopkins either on draft night or before. I would have loved for the Patriots to get him, but Bill O'Brien and him don't quite get along there, so that's an interesting one. But this one for me, it's easy. It's Will Anderson. Will Anderson's been talked about since he got to college at Alabama. He's an absolute freak. I think that it was kind of a disappointing year for him. He was massive last year. Heisman votes massive. But I do think if you're going to talk about, the way I have about this edge class, where I think that there are there's a lot of names in the edge class. They're not all necessarily home run hits. A lot of them are going to be projects. He's a guy that is the guy in this class for me. So Will Anderson to the Cardinals. They want to find a franchise player. They want to find a guy that's going to replace J.J. Watt, especially on that defensive line. Easy home run pick here. We get to the 4th pick, the Colts. Man, I don't know what the Colts are doing. They're still interviewing Jeff Saturday, and it seems like he's going to be the guy. They've gone, 20 seasons with 20 different quarterbacks at this point, from Luck to Brissett to Rivers to Ryan to Wentz. All these guys coming in to Indianapolis, they're tired of it. They need to get a guy. It's not Sam Ehlinger. There was a lot of hope for him coming in this year. When he got the playing time, they went back to Matt Ryan. So for me, it's the big-bodied project in Will Levis, who maybe is ready to start and burn a few years, or Bryce Young, arguably the best player in college football. For me right now, they still have a good offensive line, despite some poor play and some injuries. Still love Quentin Nelson. They do have JT there at running back, who 2 years ago was the best running back in football. Injuries again this year. They have Michael Pittman, who is just a really solid wide receiver. There's nothing bad there. I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't go quarterback. I guess they're the Colts. They can do something weird. Maybe they believe that they can pick up another veteran or trade for somebody like a Jordan Love. I'm not quite sure, but for me, it's Bryce Young. When you look at the Colts organization, I don't know if I trust them to take Young or Levis, but for me right now on January 30th, Bryce Young is too good to pass up here, especially with the line you have. You fix some problems you have in the offseason on the defensive side of the ball. And you bring in Bryce Young and you really give him the keys to the franchise there. And you have finally a young quarterback who's not an old veteran coming for 1 year. And I don't know about fit exactly, but I like Bryce Young a lot. So Moving on to 5, a lot of people have been, and you'll hear this with a lot of the guys when we do our Two Beers Deep podcast, which again starts this Thursday back. We took a month off from streaming, which has been so great and relaxing. So thank you to all of our fans and friends and family for kind of giving us the ability to maneuver. But Seattle has been a team that we've talked about coming up for a quarterback. Now, my perspective on that situation drastically changed in the past 24 hours for a few reasons. Listen to a few podcasts, guys from Football Focus, Football Network, ESPN, just bouncing around getting information. That's what you do at this point because I'm bored. You know, football is basically over till the Super Bowl, and then it's just full-on combine season. But the Seattle Seahawks win-loss was 5.5 going into this last season. They made the playoffs with Geno Smith. Geno Smith is most likely not the quarterback of the future there, but he is a 2-year bridge quarterback on a team that is ridiculously good. They had a wonderful rookie class last year. They really hit home runs. This is a very solid team. I think Kenneth Walker coming back healthy is going to do wonders for them. If I'm them, I'm not bringing in a quarterback from this class because the quarterbacks in this class need some time. Bryce, maybe you plug in right away. He's great. CJ Stroud, maybe you plug in right away, whatever. That division is very interesting in itself, and anybody can win that. But Seattle, for me, I think they need to ride Geno. It's going to be a 2-year deal. There's going to be guaranteed money. On the flip side of it, the other thing that really made me kind of steer away from quarterback with Seattle was Pete Carroll's age. You don't really think about it, but he's 70. Like, Pete Carroll is up there. When you look at the quarterback situation with a lot of these teams, you look at, a new coach coming in to the Texans, they want their guy. A new coach coming in to the Colts, they want their guy. Pete Carroll is not going to draft a quarterback because that quarterback may be for the next coach if he decides to retire. There aren't really rumors about him retiring, but that's just my train of thought right now, guys. In a week that could change and they could fall in love with Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, which is a very real possibility, and snipe him here. For me, the player that feels the most Seattle Seahawk is Tyree Wilson. He's 6'6". He is an absolute physical freak. Again, the upside is there with him. It's a massive ceiling. The downside is that he still has a lot to learn and a lot to do to be a great edge. Again, dude, these edges in this class are interesting. I think that Tyree Wilson is going to blow up the combine. I think his tape's going to prove that he deserves to be a top 10 pick because edge is a premium in the NFL right now. Seattle Seahawks buff up that defense, and they go back to try to make the playoffs again with Geno Smith. So next up is the Lions. I've seen a lot of people take edge for the Lions here. I don't hate that. I mean, they take Aiden Hutchinson. They have Houston, very surprising rookie up the middle there. Their secondary needs a lot of work, but at 6, I'm just not in love with the corners in this class to go that far. I mean, looking at some of the corners here, Joey Porter Jr., legacy pick there, was great for Penn State. He's going to be a very solid 2, if not a 1 for a lot of teams. Cam Smith, I think when it's all said and done, is going to be a great 2. I don't know. I need to watch more tape on the defensive backs. The only unit I've actually watched any amount of anything on is quarterbacks, just to be able to not talk out of my complete ass at this point, guys. Keely Ringo, too slow to the ball for me. He seems like he reacts in situations that sometimes you can get blanketed in when you're in a defense that good. I'm not saying he's not good, but for me, the reason that Mel Kiper, the fact that Mel Kiper didn't have him in his mock draft speaks volumes to me. I think Keely Ringo could, test out great and be a high pick. But when you just took Jeff Okudah not too long ago, you can't miss on this pick. Christian Gonzalez, I think, is my number 2 corner in this class when we start diving into it. Just solid all around. But I do think, and it's been the smoke that's really popular right now, guys, Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois, he is the number 1 corner in this class, I think, when we get down to it. He's massive. People love him. You're going to hear this name. He's going to rise up boards. Again, all of those guys, as good as they are, not really my bread and butter at 6 there. You look at the edges here. One of the edges that I do want to talk about for a second, he's so far down on this, Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. Lucas Van Ness, redshirt sophomore, absolute freak. Weird, he declared. Has nothing on tape, has barely played, but is an absolute skyrocketing potential monster. I think by the end of all of our mocks, he'll be a late first, if not a mid first guy, by the way he tests. So I do want to call out if you use this website. Some of the rankings are a little up and down, but Lucas Van Ness, make sure you're aware of that name. Again, at 6, though, I'm not in love with it. So I am going to go with the pick here that I feel it's somewhat of a cop-out, but you have Aiden Hutchinson on one side, Houston, moving around on guaranteed passing downs. Give me Miles Murphy. Miles Murphy at Clemson. They had a pretty tough year at the beginning of it. Clemson ended up very well. I think their defense is always going to be stout. Miles Murphy may be, again, covered by some of the other guys that they have there, but he gets to the quarterback. He's a very solid, and what you need him to do is be a number 2 from day one, and he can do that next to Hutchinson. Then we get to the Raiders. Gosh, this is a tough one for me, but I think you can absolutely chalk it in that this one is going to be the Northwestern tackle, Peter Skoronski. I want to call him Gronkowski. Skoronski, for me, he's probably going to end up playing guard at the pro. Short, stubby arms, what they call him, little T-Rex man. But the reason I'm not going to Will Levis here, let's talk about that for a second, because the Raiders are going to trade Derek Carr. It's going to be really interesting to see what they get for him. I don't really know if it's the Colts want to trade for him and they do something with that 4-7 and they move up. But the reason I'm not going quarterback here is because I don't believe Josh McDaniels wants to get a quarterback. I think that the Tim Tebow, when he got his quarterback last time, ruined him a little bit. But I also think that that team, as weird as they are, as kind of good but not that good, but are good but aren't good, they're win now. I don't think McDaniel wants to be a part of a rebuild. I think that he wants to take the pieces they have and do as well as he can. I could see them going defense here. They dropped a lot of players. Abram was a complete bust. Cleveland Farrell, wild. I mean, Max Crosby's an elite edge rusher. But for me, get that line better. I think they're really, really going to go after someone like a Jimmy Garoppolo, somebody that they can plug into a system. If you watch towards the end of the year, Jarrett Stidham had a great time in the system. He's a New England guy. And Derek Carr didn't seem to be a part of it. Josh Jacobs was great. So a lot of things going on with the Raiders. I think that they buff up the line and try to attract one of the free agent quarterbacks as opposed to taking a Will Levis here, who's a project who probably won't be ready for 2 years in terms of playing with the elites we're looking at, especially in the AFC, especially in that division. And then there were the Falcons. The Falcons are crazy, man. I think that they could go edge. I do think Van Ness could go here. They're just so bad. I mean, quarterback is something. So Will Levis, Anthony Richardson still on the board. For me, if I'm the Falcons organization, I look at Desmond Ridder, kick the tires there, see what we have. Mariota had a decent year, but all in all, aside from being in probably the worst division in football, they just aren't ready to win now. So what you need to do is get the best players, get the best talent, get the best people in that building. And it's kind of tough because you want to get edge, and like I keep talking about, guys, this edge class is just weird. This defensive tackle class is just weird. So I'm going to go with the guy that I had mentioned is my number 1 in the class. That's Devin Witherspoon. Put him across from Terrell. Have 2 just elite cornerbacks there in a division where you have, and I know free agency and a lot of stuff's going to happen, but you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You have DJ Moore still in that division. So give the Falcons there. On the flip side of it, we'll see what happens with that offense. I think there's going to be a lot of changes. But I like the cornerback situation here. I think Witherspoon across from Terrell gives them an absolute elite 1-2 punch. So love that. This one, again, I think you can basically put it in chalk. I don't see Will Levis not being in the top 10 here, guys. He has too much potential, too much that people are banging the drums for in terms of his skill set here. Him falling to 9 for the Panthers is an absolute steal for those guys. A lot of people do have, a Richardson here or something like that. For me, Will Levis needs to be in a situation that doesn't need to win right now. He needs some time to develop. He has all the excuses in the world why he wasn't great at Kentucky this past year, but he's great enough to be one of the 3 guys. If Will Levis goes to the Texans at 2, if Will Levis goes to the Colts at 4, I'm not shocked. It's going to be the 3 of them in the top 10, especially after last year where Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback taken in the first round. I do see all 3 of them in the top 10. The Panthers have Sam Darnold still. He looked decent towards the end of the year, but they're damn near in full rebuild mode. They kept Brian Burns. You got to love that kid. He's just an absolute electric factory out of Florida State for them. Give me the quarterback. Give me Will Levis. Start building something there. Matt Rule is gone. You're bringing in a new regime, new quarterback. Do you guys get the theme here yet? 10, the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is crazy to me. The Philadelphia Eagles obviously are sitting here at 10 while playing in the Super Bowl. There's literally nothing else you could want here. I kind of got swayed a little bit by Mel Kiper's recent mock. Mel Kiper recently had, and I just want to make sure I get the name correct, Kalaji Kancey out of Pitt, who led the nation in sacks from the interior. he's just short. He's 5'10", I believe. An absolute monster. I could see Philly going with him. And I like that pick because this is something that me and another member of Thoughts on the Bench, Dre, talk about all the time. He wants Bijan Robinson here because the upside of Bijan is stellar. Bijan Robinson is arguably the best player in this class. For me, the Eagles are going to lose Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave to free agency, or if they bring Fletcher back, they're not going to have the same guys they have this year. You have Jordan Davis. You need a partner with him. The Eagles broke the record for sacks in a season this year. I think they had 70, including postseason. They need to keep that pressure up. The offensive line probably needs a little work, but they have Jurgen to fill in for center. Landon Dickerson stays at guard. Lane Johnson maybe. So if something happens here, maybe they snag a tackle. They really look at Paris Johnson Jr., or they look at Broderick out of Georgia, Broderick Jones. It's just, for me, they have some big needs. They have big needs in the trenches at defensive tackle, so, Casey's a great idea there. They also have needs at safety and cornerback. Gardner Johnson, he could be gone in free agency, missed a beat of the year. Darius Slay's not getting any younger. So for me, linebacker, another name you could probably have here, but they do have underrated linebackers. So I think that the defensive tackle situation is where they do end up going. But for me, I'm going to go with Joey Porter Jr. here. Joey Porter Jr., he's coming off, he's a first-round pick. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think he's going to be the second or third cornerback in this class. He's tough. He's an angry kid. He's a Pennsylvanian kid. These Pennsylvania teams love Pennsylvania kids. Look at everybody that's gone from Pitt to Pittsburgh. You got Hassan Reddick breaking records out there from Temple. Give me Joey Porter. Give them another secondary piece. I know that, CJ is a safety, so maybe they end up going the safety route, which if it's Brian Branch. He can play nickel, jump around safety. I don't love the rest of the safeties in this class. Antonio Johnson is great. I think Jordan Battle has a place in this draft, but Brian Branch really separates himself at the safety position, so maybe they get him here because he plays a little corner as well. But for me, let's just go Joey Porter Jr. So on to 11, I think this pick is the easiest pick in the draft. Give me Paris Johnson Jr. I could see the Titans being one of the teams that move up for a quarterback. Malik Willis did not look good. He just did not. Ryan Tannehill needs to be gone. This team needs a quarterback. I currently live in Nashville. I know what they're saying. Quarterback. I just don't know if Anthony Richardson's the guy because Derrick Henry is that team right now, right? They're ground and pound. They do need a guy that can throw the ball and do well. But for me right now, it's not Richardson because Richardson is a project. Paris Johnson Jr., the Titans tackles are just atrocious. Taylor Lewan goes down. They're letting up like 46 pressures a second, it feels like. Paris Johnson Jr., you put him in there. That's a guy you're going to start every game and a guy that is going to do much better than this line is doing right now. Add it up. So we took C.J. Stroud for the Texans here. They're up again at 12. Again, I understand that the want to take wide receiver here. For me, the wide receivers in this class, and we can take a look at them real quick. So Quentin Johnson, he's massive. A guy that massive should not be that good in open field. He's a freak. A couple injuries this year, and then absolutely got shut down by Georgia. I think he had one catch. Flip that, Jordan Addison gets hurt. He's, we saw him at Pitt with Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh, so was a big fan of his at Pitt. Transfers out, does the same thing with Caleb Williams, and then gets hurt. He's a smaller guy. He's a great route runner. He's going to be an interesting one. And then there's JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He, to me, some people are saying wide receiver 1 in the class. Some people are saying wide receiver 3 on the team that takes him. That's a really interesting one that I'm very curious what happens. And then I think the guy that, when it's all said and done, could be the number 1 in the class is Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Again, this is not some wild pick. This is a very talked about player. Stayed at Boston College. Is the guy there. He was the only guy you had to worry about, and you still couldn't stop him. I do see them going someone in the first round, Josh Downs out of USC, or Downs, excuse me. Good. Keyshawn Boothie, who such a weird offseason for him. I think there's going to be a lot that comes out with that. And then obviously Hyatt and Tillman out of Tennessee had great years, but I think Zay Flowers is going to get skyrocketed upwards. Quentin Johnson makes sense here. I can't. When you have a team like the Texans that have perpetually been somewhat terrible, I just really want to get them as much talent as possible. So for me here, I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez. You pair him with Derek Stingley Jr. out of LSU. I had him as my cornerback one. Sauce blew him out of the water. Sauce is elite. Stingley, though, played very, very well under the radar. You get Gonzalez and Stingley in that division. You're looking at a team that is instantly turning around. I'm a big fan of that. The Jets here, they could go a couple different directions. I think they bring in a veteran quarterback. That team's too ready right now for that. I had done a mock earlier today just messing around where I had them taking a cornerback. I had them getting Cam Smith here. But I think right now, if you're going to bring in an outside guy, you have Breece Hall, you have your wide receiver. Mel had them taking JSN here. I am going to go, and it sucks as a Steelers fan that they're both off the board here, or I guess all of them with Peter as well. But Broderick Jones, tackle. They had Font come in. That was a failed experiment. Mekhi Becton's been kind of iffy there. Bring in another tackle. Make that offensive line as sturdy as it can. Make it a destination for somebody. Robert Saleh is building a quality team over there. I could see them go secondary here, help out Sauce. I could see them go a couple different positions, but just get tackle. Protect whoever's coming in. Make Breece Hall actually run the ball really well. Give some time. And I think that team is really close to being something special. New England Patriots here at 14. I had heard a rumor, and granted, guess what? It's January 30th, that the Patriots could be the team that does pull the trigger and take Bijan Robinson. Ramondre Stevenson is good, a fourth-round guy, but he's a bowling ball. He played this entire year injured. I think Ramondre Stevenson is a great running back for a short amount of time. He doesn't feel like a second contract type of guy. He feels like a guy that you're going to use as much as possible and then let go. So bringing in Bijan would not be some audacious statement here. He was a fourth-round guy. So they like Stevenson. They don't love him. Bijan would be fun to use in a Bill O'Brien offense. I think he would be a wonderful pick. But there's a couple other things to consider here. I do think they need safety next to Duggar because McCourty is ancient at this point, but it depends if they're going to play strong or free. I do think they could use cornerback help, quarterback as well with Mac Jones, and I think they could use wide receiver help. I would have loved, again, for DeAndre Hopkins to end up there, but I am going to finally break my rule here. I'm going to go with a wide receiver. Give me Quentin Johnson here. Quentin Johnston, again, like I said, is massive. He's quick. He's great in the open field. They just haven't had a true wide receiver in a long time. I like Jacoby Myers. I hate Devontae Parker. I just always have not been a Devontae Parker guy. I think that he, coming out of Louisville for Miami, was always supposed to be the guy who had some drops. It's all geared in fantasy, so it's not really fair to him. Johnston, for me, would be the instant plug-in guy for this offense. Bill O'Brien can use him a million different ways. And Mac Jones, this is going to be the prove-it year for him. I think he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback, but I think he's good. You bring in a guy like Quentin Johnston, and you're saying to him, hey, here's your weapon. This is not N'Keal Harry. This is a guy that is proven, a guy that was great through injuries and helped TCU get to where they were. So let's get him to New England, and I hate that for the AFC. Green Bay. This is another pick that is interesting. I could see them go a couple different ways, obviously. The sexy pick, though, Michael Mayer, Notre Dame. Michael Mayer would probably be the best tight end in most of the classes we've seen. This is a good tight end class, honestly, and I think that's one thing people are going to talk about. Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. I think he's probably the two. I mean, Darnell Washington really came on for Georgia. He looked great. Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State is great. I could see maybe in the first two rounds 4 tight ends go in Meyer, Kincaid, Musgrave, and Washington. We just got to wait and see. But Mike Myers is the only guy I'm taking in the first round here. You have Robert Tonyan. You have a couple tight ends that come and go. It's always the great conundrum. Is Aaron Rodgers, who we'll get to in a second about if he's even there, is he not throwing to tight ends, or is the tight end position not good in Green Bay? You'll lose your mind trying to answer that one. But then comes the question, is it Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers next year? It feels like it's going to be Jordan Love on a 1-year deal, I guess. Who knows? But I don't think Aaron Rodgers is there. Get the tight end. Him and Christian Watson are going to be good. You could see a wide receiver here maybe. Maybe they take JSN. Maybe they take Addison to pair with Watson. Who knows? I just give me the tight end. Let's call it a day. The Washington Commanders. I think they go with Sam Howell next year. They already took Dotson in the first round last year. They have Scary Terry still. I like Brian Robinson a lot. I don't think this is a Bijan landing spot. Maybe it is. Maybe they go crazy. I do think that they really, really enjoyed Brian Robinson. Obviously came back from the gunshot wound, which is still a crazy story. So an amazing guy, one of the worst franchises in sports history. But really, when you look at Washington, for me, it's talent. I think that they just need a lot. I like their front line. I think Chase Young, if he could stay healthy, is a good player. Right now, and you can click this and see all the team needs, if anyone was curious. Quarterback, cornerback, safety, linebacker, edge, all of the main ones here. So I do think I'm going to go corner here. You look at some of the names left. The only guy really, if we're looking at the cornerback position, I like Cam Smith. I like Emmanuel Forbes. He's just kind of small. I think he weighed in, I think it was like a $150 his freshman year, $170 now, or weight is at 180, so we'll see. Forbes did have a decent game against Kentucky, picked off pick 6, I believe, against Will Levis on a screen route. But the other thing is, college programs are scheming Forbes. They're throwing these screens so he has to come up and make a tackle. What do you do when A.J. Brown is the one catching the screen and he smacks you upside the head with his giant arms? So Forbes, to me, is a first-round guy, potentially, just not overly obsessed with him. So give me Cam Smith here for the Washington Commanders. And then we got to the Steelers. I liked Brian Breezy. I think it's Breezy. Apologies there. I liked him very early in the system. Again, man, I think I'm getting in my head with the Mel Kiper leaving them out of their first-round mocks. Breezy feels like a guy that is a Steeler. He's tough. He's in the middle. We have a lot of issues at DT. Larry Ogunjobi was good this year, but we need to get Cam some help. TJ, when he's healthy, is probably the best player in football. I would say pretty confidently as a homer pick. But when he's not healthy, it's tough. Our cornerbacks have not been great. Cam's good. We might not pay him. We'll see what happens. Safety, we need a little bit of help. Linebacker's been atrocious. We need center. We need guard. We need tackles. If one of those tackles is here, so Broderick Jones, Paris Johnson Jr., or Peter, I would be banging the table pretty hard for the Steelers to take him. Here, though, some of the guys that I realistically could see the Pittsburgh Steelers taking. Brian Breezy, however it's pronounced, I apologize. I could see us taking Brian Branch. Edmonds was good last year. Edmonds has been decent since Minka came to the Steelers. Terrible before that. I do think that we need to find a replacement for him. I think he's a terrific athlete. I just don't know if he's our guy. So Brian Branch, I've mentioned I liked him a lot. This could be a landing spot for one of the other corners, so I could see Ringo, if he turns around, I'm just not in love with the guy right now. I could see Forbes here, which I kind of wouldn't like. Linebacker, something we need. Miles Jack was not good last year. You bring in a guy like Brian Flores to be your linebacker coach. Devin Bush is gone. He's just bad, guys. When your best linebacker is Robert Spillane, you got some issues at the position. So wouldn't hate that. Don't really see Harrison as a first-round guy, but like I said, these guys, if you're taken in the first round, you're a first-round guy. Drew Sanders was just taken in our second-round pick for the Steelers Depot. I like him a lot. I think he's a great guy, just a second-round guy. So for me, to build this offensive line, to make Najee Harris good, to make Kenny Pickett good, you go with really the only guard I think that's worth it, and that's Osiris Torrance. If you're going to pick a guy in this draft that likes to hit people on the offensive side of the ball, it's Osiris Torrance. Give me him to put in the guard situation. We brought James Daniels from Chicago last year. He was okay. Mason Cole from the Vikings. He was okay. We put Chucks out at tackle with Dan Moore. It just, after a while, we got to get the Pittsburgh Steelers football back, right? Give me a guard. Let's just be happy with the offense, how we ended the year. We ended extremely strong. Just get a guard and be happy. The Lions. So we already took Miles Murphy, edge. Mel had them taking 2 edges, which I think is crazy. Wide receiver, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Sun God. They took Jameson Williams out of Alabama. Running back position, Jamal Williams broke the franchise record in touchdowns. DeAndre Swift, when healthy, has been good. A lot of injury prone there. I wouldn't be, again, shocked if the Lions went quarterback, but there's a couple reasons why I'm not sure they will, and it's kind of that same mentality for me that the Seahawks had, which Dan Campbell biting kneecaps off. It's a tough team. Goff was good last year. I know you don't want to believe it, but Goff was good last year. I just don't think they're a team that needs to get a quarterback and do it right now. A week ago, I was pounding the table for saying you need a young quarterback, you need that contract because Jared Goff's contract is terrible. A young quarterback would help this team immensely with cap room, but you still have Goff. You still have him. Nobody's Nobody's beaten down Detroit's door to get Jared Goff. So I think they hold on to him here. Some of the team needs coming in for the Lions are interesting. So quarterback, like we just talked about, cornerback, defensive tackle, guard, safety. Like I mentioned, we had the edge rusher. So right now, it's a tough one. For me, though, it comes down to if Clark Phillips or Emmanuel Forbes are first-round guys. Maybe I'm wrong, guys, and I hope I am. I just don't think Keely Ringo is a first-round corner right now, based off just the amount of mocks he's been left off and the amount of conversations about him. So, for me, we might regret this, and sorry, Barrowman, but I am going to go Emmanuel Forbes. I think he's a little undersized, but I do think he's a quality cornerback, and I think in the right system he could be good. And I think Jeff Okudah, if he sticks around, I believe he has another year. So apologies if he doesn't. He looked okay. I mean, was a bust year 1, injured year 2. Year 3 was serviceable. I think he has a career as a cornerback, so we'll see. Forbes, though, did get schemed in college, which if you're getting schemed against in college, pros might be a tough time for you. The Bucs here, I know who I'm taking, but their needs, just to look at it, quarterback, edge, cornerback, guard, running back. So the interesting thing for me about the Bucs here is Tom Brady's gone, right? I mean, he could be back. I think he's gone. I think this team is about to go through a massive rebuild. I don't see Anthony Richardson as their guy, just because he needs a lot. Kyle Trask is there. They might kick the tires on him. That feels like a very weird situation. But for me, the Bucs, you look at Shaq Barrett. Is he going to come back and be the same guy after his injury? You look at, Vita Vea. You need to get him help up front. The Bucs team that won the Super Bowl was a great defense. The cornerbacks, though, Jamal Dean, is he going to be back? There's a lot of question marks on this team, and I think that they have a lot that they need to answer. It's going to be interesting. But for me, it all comes down to, is Shaq Barrett going to be that same guy? I don't know. I think this is where Lucas Van Ness goes. Needs a lot of help. Shaq Barrett could be the guy to coach him up, help him be there. Todd Bowles loves these big guys. He had Sheldon Richardson basically working as a defensive end for the Jets there for a little bit. So Luca Van Ness, I think, is a tremendous add here. I did misspeak earlier. It is not the Lions that Mel Kiper had 2 edge rushers. It was Seattle. So we have Seattle taking Tyree Wilson, the massive edge there. So now you're looking at your Seattle. Great corner, great up front, decent linebacker, 2 wide receivers in Lockett and Deke Metcalf you love, a running back you love. The quarterback situation, you're still going with Geno. I don't think Richardson goes here. You're really looking at kind of an embarrassment of riches for a team that everyone thought was going to suck. Edge, we kind of solved that. Guard. Again, I just don't see a guard in this class past Osiris that I love. There's a couple centers I do enjoy here for the Steelers. Michael Schmidt is one of them. And then Alex Forsythe, sneaky. I don't think he's anybody we're taking on day one. But Seattle, I do think they could buff up that O-line a little bit, depending on who they take, why they take, what they take, how they take. And they could go a million different ways, man. It's January 30th. Who knows anything at this point? For me, though, the most important thing here, I do think that there's one safety in this class, and if you're going to get a little more secondary help, it's Brian Branch. Brian Branch, again, can play in the nickel, can play safety, very disciplined guy, Alabama football. What more can you say about it? So I do feel bad because I think that they easily could go with Kancey. Pete Carroll wants to get back to being being the defense that people are scared of. I think you can do that through the air, on the ground. For me, just take Brian Branch, have another piece in that secondary. The Chargers, though, that is where our man goes. I think that when it's all said and done, Kancey's going to be the number 2 defensive tackle behind Jalen Carter in this class. I understand the size thing. Please do not let your friends comp him to Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is an accident in the factory of God making men. Doesn't make sense. Kancey, though, is a great defensive tackle. The Chargers get decimated against the run. They just do. It's a tale as old as time. Yinzers drink Turner's iced tea, and the Chargers get decimated by the run. Give me a big meatball up front. Let's get happy. A couple other places I guess they could go here. They could go tight end. They could go wide receiver. You don't know how much longer Keenan Allen's going to be around. Mike Williams is perpetually hurt. The tight end, Gerald Everett, has another year there, I believe. He's okay. You could go offensive line. I just don't love the remainder of these guys, for the first round. You could go a couple different ways. Give me Kancey. Give me the pick guy. Defensive tackle. This is it, guys. So this is going to be a fun selection for all of us. This is where Anthony Richardson goes. Anthony Richardson is super interesting because if he goes in the league right now, per Todd McShay, he's a top 5 rushing quarterback. He's a freak athlete. He has a cannon of an arm. If you watch the first game of the season, you think to yourself, this guy is going to be in competition as the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Then the year goes on. It just wasn't terrific. I think he's going to have an interesting draft process and an interesting career for us because realistically, the team that takes him has to be ready to fight for him to be a good quarterback. Otherwise, it's just not going to be there. We're talking about a guy that has bigger arm and rushing potential than Malik Willis, and Malik Willis was getting rated in the first round there. I think that it's an absolute no-brainer that Richardson will be a first-round quarterback just based off the teams that need him. So let's talk about why Baltimore. Lamar Jackson. That situation is fun as a Steelers fan. Lamar, in my opinion, will not play on the tag, and the team has already said they're going to tag him if they can't get a deal done. They are too far away. The Deshaun Watson contract absolutely decimated any hope for Lamar Jackson to remain a Raven. I don't think they pay him, and realistically, I don't know if they should. Lamar Jackson is a unanimous MVP type guy. He's a freak athlete, but I just don't know if you're winning the Super Bowl with that. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I love Lamar. But I hope he wins the Super Bowl somewhere else because I hate the Baltimore Ravens. Give me Richardson because when you look at Tyler Huntley on that team, Richardson right now could go compete with Tyler Huntley, and Tyler Huntley was the starter on that team when Lamar went down. So you get Richardson, you put him in that offense. You run a very similar offense thanks to the mobile, but it's like, when I say a similar offense, I can't even begin to pretend that he is anything like Lamar. Lamar is a one-of-a-kind freak of nature athlete. But Richardson, to me, is the easiest pain point for the Ravens to plug in a guy and have him, again, for the next couple years. So we'll see what happens there. The Vikings. I'm guessing this is an entire defense need. Wide receiver, tight end, cornerback, edge, linebacker. If they could, it's interesting. So, yeah, they do need some wide receiver help, even though they have Jetta. Thielen's getting old as all hell, but I think you can wait a little bit for wide receiver. Addison would be interesting here. Obviously, JSN still on the board. Kirk Cousins was perpetually let down by this defense. So if you're looking for adding in a guy, I know they had edge on there, cornerback, linebacker, that's fine. Just absolutely torn apart. I think that defense is damn near pathetic at this point. So I am going to get him a little cornerback help here. See, for me, no, I lied. I'm not going to go. I was going to go Clark Phillips. They took Louis Cine last year, broken leg. They have a couple cornerbacks that help and hurt, but this is where I go with the linebacker. I'm going to go with Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. The Clemson defense is good. You could go Breeze here. I don't know, man. The Vikings need a defensive guy. If I'm there, we're looking at this closer to the draft. It could be a guy like B.J. Ojolari. You look at the edge rushers in this class. Nolan Smith, I'm not really sold on him right now, but still, freak, big guy. We'll see what happens. Isaiah Foskey, good. Ozuma, a lot of people like him out of Kansas State. Just give me Trenton Simpson. Plug in a new linebacker. I don't know if I ever see the Vikings doing anything. I love Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback right now. I think Dalvin Cook's elite. Jetta's elite. This defense needs a lot of help. Hopefully Simpson can be the guy there. Looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars, cornerback, safety, guard, center, wide receiver, a lot of things going on here. One thing they do have, though, is Trevor Lawrence, which is as important as you can get in that situation. So defensive line looks pretty stout. I could see them going a couple different ways. I wouldn't mind a reunion with Jalen Ramsey. I don't think the Rams hold on to him much longer. I think Jalen Ramsey could be back over there in that case. So we'll see. But this is where I go Clark Phillips III. The difference here for the Vikings, they need to hit on this pick. The Jaguars have a really good defense, and they've proven that they don't need to hit. And what I mean by that is they took Travon Walker, who to me was he was the question mark with upside compared to Hutchinson's sure thing. Both had good rookie years. I think Walker's ceiling is a bit higher. Hutch's floor was a bit higher. Clark Phillips, you need a guy on this defense that can help out. Instant pick in there out of Utah. Utah had a great year. We'll see what they can do next year. The Giants, this one's pretty much chalk for everybody that knows, football right now. You want to bring Danny Dimes back. Saquon Barkley was terrific this year. Oh, he moved. You see him sleeping there? What a pup. Um, yeah, so the Giants, it's one of these wide receivers. Jordan Addison, JSN. You have a couple guys there. You have Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky who will come back. Sterling Shepard, there's question marks there. They obviously had Kadarius Toney in the first round, let him walk. So I think this pick is going to be really interesting, and I think they're going to look at Danny Dimes and be like, what do you want? To me, Addison is the route runner. JSN, he just has me worried with a lot of the wide receiver 3 on his own team talk. So I'm going Jordan Addison here. I think he was, before the injury, I think he was, 1 or 2 wide receivers in the country this past year. Obviously, Ohio State has a bunch of studs. Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out is going to be great. So this is the pick. This is the one, guys. So Dallas Cowboys, Bijan Robinson. It makes all the sense in the world. A lot of people have him going to Buffalo at 27. Some people have him going earlier. For me, Tony Pollard gets hurt. I mean, I love Tony Pollard, but he's a 25-year-old fourth-round pick looking to get a second contract coming off of a massive, I believe, ACL injury. It's just not happening there. And Tony Pollard is not going to take a hometown discount because it's not his hometown. Tony Pollard is going to try to get as much money as he can out of the situation, as he should. Tony Pollard has been great since coming into the league. He is a good running back. I just don't see them breaking the bank for a guy coming off a massive knee injury when they can take Bijan Robinson at a cheap deal here. This does mean they'd have to cut or restructure Zeke. Now, Zeke and Bijan together would be a massive, massive, I don't want to say upgrade because I like Tony Pollard, but it's an upgrade. Bijan Robinson's a freak. Get him in there. Get Dallas that running back. I just, they got rid of Kellen Moore, who's now with the Chargers. I think this is a home run hit. I think this makes all the sense in the world. And the Cowboys have proven they take first-round running back, so add to the list there. The Buffalo Bills, they will need linebacker help. Edmonds is gone after this year. They're also looking at, I believe it's a cornerback, I want to say. Why can't I find their team right now? Which one is the Bills logo? Oh, my Lord. There it is. Wow, it was one. Running back, guard, safety, cornerback. The guard class is tough. Running back is interesting for me for a couple of reasons. One, I like Cook. I think Cook came on towards the later half of the year. I think he looked great. But I do think this is a position where they look at the team and they go, what do we need now? They have McKinney. They have Gabriel Davis. They brought back Cole Beasley. They have Stephon Diggs. So I don't know if I really agree with them needing a wide receiver. Big game Dave. Big game Gabe. Big game Davis. Has been good for them. So maybe they take JSN. Maybe that's where he goes here. I don't know. I'm not really sure if I'm 100% sold on it. Secondary help, I could see Brian Branch going here if he falls there, which would be really good for them. I could see a couple different things, but, it just depends really what happens for them in the offseason. But I am going to go Antonio Johnson out of A&M here. Give them that safety help. I don't know. I feel so bad for Bills fans, man. As much as I feel bad for Cleveland and Detroit fans, I feel bad for Bills fans. Coming over here for the Bengals. That's an interesting one. Cornerback, edge, defensive tackle, guard, running back. For me, the Bengals are such a good team and so sound. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with T. Higgins. I think they try to hold on to him, but do they pay him and Chase? Because Burrow is going to demand a massive contract coming out of there. I think offensive line makes all the sense in the world for them here. I just don't think it's right now, especially considering, tackles. Harrison can go in the first. Wright's going to be a nice day 2 guy. Matthew Bergeron had some heat. We'll see there. Guards, Patterson's good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not in love with it. Again, I like some of the centers here just because I'm a Steelers guy and we need a center, but I'm not in love with buffing up that line in the first round here. I think they can do that in free agency. So then you're looking kind of at where to bust up. This is where I take them. Brian Brzee, I understand that I said, Mel keeping him out as first makes me panic a little bit, but this is, put him next to Hendrickson. Boom, the Bengals defensive line is good. I don't think he's going to be the guy there. He's going to be a guy. And the Bengals are right back into their stupid, successful situation. The Broncos at 29 because they suck. Tackle, not getting that. Edge, we could probably work that one out. Linebacker, cornerback, defensive tackle. One thing that's underrated here is they need a quarterback. I'm interested to see what happens. Javonte Williams his injury really upset a lot of fantasy owners. I think he was the guy this year. Latavius Murray was really successful as a running back in that system. I think that getting rid of Hackett was a great decision. I think Russell Wilson is going to have a better year, which means a better year for Sutton and Judy. So a lot can go on there. They have Surtain at the cornerback position, so I'm not going to kill myself to take Keely Ringo here. As I mentioned, I'm not a big fan of his. But I think I am going to go Ojulari here out of LSU. They just need to hit, man. You get rid of Bradley Chubb, you send him away. You have Von Miller. You have this history of edge rushers. Let's get one here that has damn near a first-round grade and be happy about it. Kansas City Chiefs. So this is an interesting one because a lot of people have them taking Flowers here. So they do have that wide receiver, Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is a shifty guy, great wide receiver. JSN's still on the board, though. It's a no-brainer for me. It's got to be him. I don't know what is going to happen come combine time with the wide receivers in this class. I'm not massive on it, but a guy with that much upside with Patrick Mahomes is going to do well. They took Sky Moore. Sky Moore has not really been great. Juju was a nice pickup for them. Marcus Valdez-Scantling has been playing very well. Kelsey's still the number one. The offense is great. JSN getting in there is just a bonus pick for them at this point, which I think is amazing. And then we get to the Eagles again. So previously, the Philadelphia Eagles did take Joey Porter, the cornerback. I could still see them going defensive tackle here. Igata Baylor's great. I like Byron Young a lot. He does a lot of things right. I just don't think those guys are ones that you want to try to get at the end of the first. The end of the first, for me, it's that fifth-year option. So you look at Miles Sanders being potentially a free agent, Boston Scott not there. So it's January. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Give me the number 2 running back in the class, Jahmyr Gibbs, who is lightning. He was the fastest player on Alabama last year. You look at the way the Eagles run, Jalen Hurts is a freak athlete. I love the guy. You have A.J. Brown catching screens, Devonta Smith just jumping like a flying squirrel there. Dallas Goedert for short downs, a great offensive line. Boston Scott, Miles Sanders at the running back at a 1-2 punch. Kenneth Gainwell was great as the receiving back on this team. Give me Gibbs. Gibbs can slide right in. They don't got to worry about losing Miles Sanders and be super happy about that. So that's it, guys. That is my first mock. I'll probably write a blog about it tonight here and get this up on YouTube. So Thoughts on the Bench, 2 Beers Deep is back this Thursday live on YouTube. We're making the change to YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, we're making the change to YouTube. We got a secret surprise guest for everybody. So guys, comment. Who's your team? Who's your team taking? What picks do you hate? Do I not know anything about football? Probably not, but it's just fun, and this is what we do, and we listen to people with nice hair on ESPN talk to us, and we make opinions about it. So I'll be doing more of these mocks coming up here. We'll do a group mock coming up with myself, Dre, Ping, Malik, and Moorhead, and a lot of draft talk. We got 3 months of my favorite time of the year, which all leads to just absolutely nothing. We'll see you guys later.